and welcome to another edition of the Why Behind the Why podcast. I know it sounds weird saying another because it's been 2 years since our last episode, but we're back. You there to
Yeah,
go?
yeah, it's been some time. It's been quite some time, but I'm excited to get back.
Yeah, yeah. But it feels good. It feels good to be back here.
It
Um,
does.
we had to. I feel like we were talking the other day, and one of the things that you pointed out was how important timing is.
Hmm.
This was a timing thing. So I think there were a lot of things that needed to occur within these past 2 years in order for us to get to the place where we are now. So I'm excited to see where this goes now. I think
Yeah,
I think that what we have to offer now is going to come in the form of offering a lot of mental health help and spiritual health as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot
Yeah.
of growth has gone on, a lot of actually self growth for me. It seems like I took a little time to just kind of go in. Um, and that has been so beneficial. So I'm excited to share.
Mhm. Yes, yes, me too. Okay, so we're jumping back into this thing, and we're going to get a little controversial, I think.
Oh, yeah. Today is about to be an interesting show.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I
Gonna be
definitely
an
think so.
interesting show. I think a lot of times people won't have this conversation, or if they do, it's in private. It's not in the open. And I think it's important to be done in the open so that it brings awareness,
Mhm.
because I think church should be a place where everybody feels comfortable.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah. So the reason that we even decided to talk about this was because of a conversation that you and I were having last week. I don't even remember how we ended up talking about this. And then we realized, just much like a lot of our other conversations, we're like, yo, this is a podcast. We should be podcasting about this instead of just having this conversation. So, but I know I started talking about how I was talking about my time and my experiences with church,
Hmm.
just growing up.
Hmm.
And I was talking about how I remember, like, when I was younger, when I was much younger, I was very much accepted. But I'm a kid, and then my mother also, she was so involved. Everybody loves my mother, so I was able to just benefit from just simply being her son,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
But as I got older, and now I'm starting to make other decisions, like as a teenager, I decided I wanted to get my ear pierced. And what I noticed is that there were certain people that stopped talking to me.
Hmm.
And then, and then this was during the time, like, I remember, like, I would go to church, and then after church was over, we would go down to the fellowship hall, and I would just talk it, just connecting, to a bunch of people. And um, once I got my ear pierced, and some of those people stopped talking to me. So then I decided to get my right ear pierced, and more of those people stopped talking to me. And then I started getting tattoos, and then more people stopped talking to me. And I think the last straw for me was one day there was a woman that I would speak to every single Sunday. We would just laugh, joke, talked about football for the most part. And she walked up to me one day. She grabbed my arm, looked at my tattoo, and said, "Mm," and turned around and walked away, and never spoke another word to me.
Wow.
And what was happening was, now this place that it felt like home for all of these years, it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt uncomfortable. I wasn't going downstairs to fellowship with people, down in the fellowship hall after service was over. When service was over, I just turned around, I got up, I walked out. Didn't really speak to anybody. Didn't have the desire to connect with new people. I sat back and just started seeing a bunch of hypocritical things going on. And I said, I'm really starting to feel like your sins are better than my sins.
Right. And then we're not going to talk about what a sin is. Well, we are going to talk about what a sin is. But, once judgment gets in play, then you will feel unwelcome. And I think that's what happens a lot of times when people go to church, and it's that old regime, you know, it's um, that old energy of you supposed to be a certain way, you're supposed to act a certain way, you're supposed to look a certain way. And it's amazing to me because when you go back in the word and you go back and you learn Jesus's story, which is a Hebrew story. Jesus wasn't at the church. he, was, he wasn't in the church. Jesus went on, you know, he would go amongst the people. And he was more of an example. It wasn't, he taught, yes, but he was an example. And by his example, people was transformed by his example, and they wanted to hear his teachings. But it wasn't a judgment. When you read the story, it wasn't through judging them. He actually befriended the ones that the people were judging.
Right.
That's who his disciples were, right? So it's kind of interesting that we have been taught a certain way. So even, you know, even growing up, because I have tattoos too, and I was, you know, I was raised very, very rigid Christianity, very rigid. So, you know, tattoos, you defiling your temple. Where did that come from? Because when you read the scripture, the breakdown of the scripture says defiling the temple is defiling the church. And anybody who is considered God's people, not you putting a tattoo on your body. Like, where did that ideology come from? Where did those teachings come from? You know,
So I'm wondering if that came from the body being a temple and them saying, well, if you're defiling, you know, your body, you're defiling the temple. And but it was, you know, that's one. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to just throw that in there so that you could respond to that. You know,
yeah,
I'm wondering if, you know, of course, we don't talk the way they spoke back then. You know, things.
right.
So a lot of things could, you know, they could be saying one thing and it means one thing. To us, we could say the exact same thing, but it means something completely different.
Right. Absolutely, because again, I'm going to say it again. It's a Hebrew story,
Mm-hmm.
so you got to realize it was those teachings, those times, those moral values you mentioned. You know, it was a sin to do certain things, but even the word sin means, if you look at it in Hebrew, because it's a Hebrew story, you got to look at it in the Hebrew sense, and the definition for sin. The Hebrew definition for sin is to miss the mark.
Hmm.
You know, it means literally just to miss the mark. So defiling the temple, I think, first of all, I think that's an individual thing because one size never fits all.
Right.
We are all a piece of God. We all are an expression of God. Defiling the temple, one may believe that if you eat too much sugar, then you defile the temple. But what's too much? Because what's too much for you may not be too much for me. You understand what I'm saying? So I think they've somehow, some people have a tendency of taking religion and creating this box and saying you can't step out of the box. But if you can't step out of the box, then how do you listen to the God within yourself and be authentic to the God within? Because if I have to move according to the box that you set for me and the box that the standard that which you set, then that could go against what God is telling me in my spirit. So who do I listen to?
Mm-hmm.
Do I listen to you in your box that you've made, or do I listen to the God within?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is why I tell people, you know, it is far more important to have a relationship with God than it is to be religious. You know, and I hear a lot of people, they push, you got to go to church, you got to go to church, you got to go to church. And I'm like, man, some of y'all going to hell. Some of you church going folks going to hell. Like, I mean, like, and you know, they have in their mind what they think, the way they think things are supposed to be. I think what you said was very important. It's tailor made to the individual. Like, what is a sin for me may not necessarily be a sin for you, right? We can do the exact same thing and it may not be a sin. If my mother told me you can't go outside,
Mhm.
but my neighbor's mother said you can, told their kid you can go outside, and we both go outside, we did the exact same thing. But what I did was a sin because I'm disobeying my mother.
Right, because that's considered missing the mark, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so there, and understanding that, and I know people will say, okay, you can't play with words when it comes to God, and can't play with words when it comes to the Bible, but even that, it's everything is according to your interpretation, because I believe that God meets you where you are.
Right.
So even when you read a scripture, the when I read the scripture 5 years ago, it means something totally different to me when I read it now because I'm in a different place. I've grown. So when I read that, then I have a different understanding because God meets you where you are.
Right.
And so I think that has to be said when we're talking about interpretation, because you're gonna, as long as you're determined to grow. Now, if you're one of those people, I'm who I am, I ain't going nowhere, this is just how I am, because you can be spiritually dead. Let's talk about it. Anything that
Right.
doesn't go dead, right? So you can be, you have a lot of spiritually dead people. But if you are, as long as you have a desire, you have a will, you want God, you're gonna grow. It's no way that you can't
Hmm.
if you have a desire for God. So whatever you do is going to, God is going to always meet you where you are, whether you're reading that, whether you're seeing a bumper sticker, whether you're having a conversation. God will talk through so many things because it's all God.
Right.
God can talk to you through anything. So I think that we have to get out of the mindset of it's just this one way, and putting God in a box. And we have humanized God. We have made God into a man, and with man traits and emotional traits. He'll get
Hmm.
mad at you when you do this. He's
Right.
you know, he's happy when you do that. Those are human traits.
Right. Right.
Those are
And I think that people have diminished God and put man too high.
oh, you better say it. You better say it. Say it again.
Yeah, they put man way too high, and and what happens is, I think that there are sometimes these unfair expectations that are put on people. Now, I do believe that once you reach a certain level, you should conduct yourself a certain way, right?
You will. You won't have another choice because you're a different person. You'll be changed from the inside.
Exactly, exactly. But the problem is when man reminds you that he's man, now all of a sudden it's, well, you're a pastor, you shouldn't be doing this, or this or that or whatever. Hey, guess what? You shouldn't be doing it either.
Well, let's also talk about what that looks like, because we started this off with, people judge you by the way that you look. They'll look at you. So, what does God look like? Because we all are a piece of it, right? God took itself and created us, right? So, so what does that look like? So, you have people that have this thought in their mind of what that looks like. So are you saying that if I come and I'm in a suit or a dress and I'm very, very elegantly dressed, then the God in me is bigger than the God that's in that person with the jeans and the t-shirt with the tattoos on, with the ears pierced and the nose piercing? Are you telling me that that's not God?
Right. Exactly.
A piece of God? Is that what you're saying? Because of the way it looks, because of the way it's packaged? Because in my experience, that one that's in the t-shirt and the jeans with the tattoo sometimes will. The Bible says, "Try the spirit by the spirit, and see it if it's of me." You know what I mean?
Right.
That light can shine sometimes so much brighter than that one in that suit.
Right.
that it's not even funny. Now it's both a piece of God. We're not going to diminish that. But now that we're talking about light, but you can look at that and judge it and miss it and miss the experience of that piece of that light, that piece of God that has light and love, and kindness and great energy to share, and that is willing to share. And
Right.
you just missed it because you judged it based on how it looked.
I think what was very interesting, a decision that my mother made. I was probably, I think I was a teenager, so my early teens, and my mother, she went to church one day, and there was a homeless guy that was outside, and he was just standing there, just I guess just staring at the doors of the church. And my mother said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I want to go in, but I can't because of the way I'm dressed." She said, "Come on in." She said, "Come on in." And he said, "No, he said, I just can't do it." So what my mother started doing was my mother started dressing down.
Oh wow. I
She
love
started, yeah, she started dressing down, and to try to make people feel more comfortable about coming in. And she said, "I'm going to go to Bishop and I'm going to tell him that this is what I want to do. And if Bishop has a problem with it, I am prepared to leave the church because I feel like this is something that is huge. We have to be able to bring souls to Christ instead of making people feel like they're not welcome." And of course, my bishop, not only was Bishop on board with it, he started doing dress down summers for the entire church. you know, when my mother made the decision to do that, I stopped dressing up altogether.
mm-hmm.
I just always dressed down, and of course it was, and that probably had a part in the way people started to view me, because now not only am I dressed down, but I'm coming in. I got these tattoos. So I started getting tattoos when I was 15. So they see this young kid coming in here with all of these tattoos and his ears pierced, and I'm dressed the way I want to dress. And of course, now in their mind, and I can't tell you how many times I had heard people say, "Why are you dressed like a thug?" And I'm like, that's funny. I didn't remember going to the thug section of the store and saying, "Give me the shoot 'em up pants." Like I don't understand where all of that is coming from, But um, so they developed they develop these preconceived notions before you even get an opportunity to open your mouth.
Right.
And they don't
Right.
understand that when you open your mouth, a blessing could be about to start flowing out, but they have already created this block. So it never happens. So now you're missing your blessings
There you
because
go.
you're judging people based off of the way that they look. You know.
Right.
So my mother was able to get several people, homeless people that did not want to come into the church. They started to come in. They started to come in because this is supposed. See, my mother was doing it the right way, right?
Right.
This is supposed to be a place where all are welcomed. And in
That,
the same place where she was doing that. And the funny thing is this: I was so accepted by so many people because of who my mother was, right?
mhm.
Or is. The same person who decided to change things up to bring people in used to, okay, you went blank for a second. Um, can you hear me? You can you hear me now?
I lost.
You let me see if there's something I can do on my end. Hold on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. You hear me?
I can't hear.
Let's we are going to go to a quick commercial break. Okay. Uh, she had to go. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this show going until Nicole comes back. Um, I see that there's some people that are just now joining us. So For the people who are just now joining, yeah, okay. Josh, Josh, you are the perfect person. Josh, I swear I thought about you. I thought about you when we decided to do this particular topic. Nicole, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. Okay. All right. So, but basically, I was talking about my mother. So, then I had, but the same people who loved my mother so much for what she did, as
Hmm.
far as starting to dress down to, make people feel more comfortable about coming in there. They were judging me for doing the same thing that my mother was doing,
Right. Trying to
because
prevent. Right.
not only that, when I went and got my first two tattoos, my mama got her first two tattoos too.
I love it. I love it.
So I mean, but it's but people they develop this this certain perception of me, and initially it was uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable because this is a place that I called home for so long,
Right.
and um and I so now I'm like, I don't feel like being here anymore. I don't feel like being around these people. So I stopped going to church. I
Yeah.
stopped going because I was confused. I'm like, so you all are we're supposed to be trying to bring souls to Christ, but you're pushing me away. You can't push and pull at the same time. You got to make a decision.
Right. Right.
And you can't say, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. And if this is not what you do and who you are, you're not doing things a certain way, then you can't sit at our table.
Right.
And that's
Absolutely.
what religion has turned into for me. And so me, not all aspects of religion. Not I don't want to make it seem like every part of religion is bad. I don't believe that every part of religion is bad, but this particular part is huge for me. And it's so huge for so many people, and it's preventing them from wanting to come. So to answer the question, do you feel welcomed by the church? Um, I'm at a different point in my life, so that the answer to that question right now is I don't know. But I'll say this: the reason that I haven't been going to church is because I did not feel welcome by the church.
I want to say this because there are a lot of churches that have changed that um, old way, and they have opened the doors, and it is more casual, and they are open, and they are welcoming. So I want to say that is a beautiful thing to watch the churches evolve, because there are a lot of churches that are doing that now. I think the problem is that those people with those old mindsets that will make that person feel a certain way. And I think it starts with leadership. I think it starts at the top. And I think it starts with teaching people the way of God. And if your story is, if you are a Christian, and if that is your story and that is your religion, then I think you should follow the way Jesus did it. And I think you should learn how Jesus did it, because you would be a lot of people would be surprised if they had understanding how Jesus moved and how Jesus walked. And it wasn't in judgment, and it wasn't in judgment. So I want to give kudos for those churches that have evolved to outreach, and that makes it comfortable for you to come as you are. And it's not a set thing where you have to look this way, you have to act this way. But for those people that have not made it there yet, there is a prayer that I've prayed, and I share this every chance I get, because I grew up very rigid. And I asked my mom at a young adult, probably in my early 20s, I said, I don't understand. There's a lot of people in church that don't change. They sit there, you can clearly see they're not happy, and they're nasty at times. I said, and they don't change. I said, something has to be missing. So I prayed this prayer, and the prayer was, God, I don't want to know what they said about you. I don't want to know what they wrote about you. I want to know who you are. I want you to teach me who you are and who I am in you. And it was the most powerful prayer I've ever prayed in my life. Now,
Oh.
I'm on a warning sign. If you don't want to know truth, don't pray it. Disclaimer. It comes with a warning.
Yeah, that's
Don't
powerful.
pray that prayer unless you're ready. But
So we have a couple of comments, and there's some things that are here that I want to toss to you.
okay, let's go.
So my cousin Josh, he's actually there. A couple of comments from him. Josh also has a podcast under Relic Media called Now That's Debatable. I just wanted to plug that. Anyway, so but Josh said, Auntie talking about my mother. He said, Auntie is a kind. She's kind and inclusive because she's a good person, not because of religion. I agree with that 100%. That's
Yeah,
just who she is at her
absolutely.
core. Now these other two things are things that I want to talk to you. Two things. One thing he said was they're judging you because the Bible is judgmental.
Ooh,
And the other thing that he said was the old mindsets come directly from the Bible. Racism, sexism, homophobia is all endorsed by the Bible.
well, let's talk about it. First of all, I knew it was going to come down to this is a Hebrew story. I have to understand that this is a Hebrew story. So, what is religion? Religion is when they take the principles of God, they take their time, their morals, their values, their rules, and then they packaged it up and made a religion, right? So you're talking about their morals and their rules during that time, and that so that's what they're speaking of. But we do. I'm my personal knowing is that God is still talking. God is still teaching. God is still. We are still becoming. So God is talking to me just like God is talking to you, and God is talking to everybody. And that's why I said it's not a one size fit all kind of thing, because a lot of the Bible is in parables. Let's talk about that too. A lot of the Bible is in parables, and a lot of people don't know that and they take it literally. And the
Right.
Bible wasn't meant to take literally because it's in parables. It teaches that, it says that. So I think the interpretation can be judgmental. The interpretation based on where you are and what you've been taught can be judgmental. But if you strip away the times then, their rules of that time and their values, then you get the substance of um, the bottom line of God.
Mhm. So he just posted another question. He said, was God wrong when he told the Hebrews to promote slavery and homophobia, etc.?
Did God say that, or did the person say that? So that becomes the question too, because see, now we're about to go deep because let's get into. I told you we was about to hit on
So,
some stuff.
and just to give you some context here, Josh is an atheist.
Okay, that's fine, no problem, no problem.
But there's something else that I want to speak on. When you finish that, there's something else that I do want to touch on with it. Go ahead.
So this is why it's important to have relationship and not religion. And let's speak on the fact that he's an atheist, because I know we hit on that when we talked about this subject. And I'm a different breed. So God is God, and God is everything. My knowing. This is my knowing. This is not everybody's knowing. This is my knowing. That God is everything. There's nothing that isn't God. So God, whether you acknowledge it or not, is still God. So somebody might say, "Oh, it's an atheist." God doesn't need you to acknowledge it. It is. It just is. So whatever your belief is, whether it's not, whether it is, God is no matter what.
Mhm.
So it needs no validation. That's a people thing. That's a human thing. God needs no validation. It is. Okay? So we gonna go there. Number two, the question was, read the question to me one more time.
Was God wrong when he told the Hebrews to promote slavery, homophobia, etc.? And then
The
he references a scripture, Leviticus 25:44 through 46, which says, purchase your slaves from the heathen among you.
Right. So this is now we're back to the understanding. And that's why I said I prayed that prayer so that there will be understanding, because history, now we're going to talk about history now. History is who wrote the Bible, and under what order was it written under. So when you go back in history and you understand that the Bible was written by a King James version was under King James authority. And if I'm not mistaken, Shakespeare had something to do with that too. So you got to consider the source too. So that's why I said we have to learn how to strip away, and we have to learn how to go to God and say, okay, speak to me directly. Show me who you are and who I am in you, because a lot of that had to do with the times, and some of it had to do with dogma and controlling people. And how do we gain control of the people?
Mhm.
So was that
So,
God? No. So the answer to that question, no, that wasn't God.
mhm. So, getting, hey, Josh, I'm gonna get to the other things that you're saying in a second. I don't want to get too far off of the topic, um, but I am going to come back to what you're saying, Josh. I believe that a lot of at the time, I didn't understand why I was going through what I was going through as far as the people judging me for the way that I look, for my tattoos, for my earrings. Um, I think as I got older, it put me in a position where I needed to, I felt like I needed to be the bridge, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm able to, especially now, I'm able to walk into very religious environments and be accepted.
Mhm.
I just, that's just how I conduct myself. They don't see me now the way they saw me back then, for
People
whatever
have
reason.
changed.
I guess with age and maturity, so, but also, I'm able to hang with a bunch of atheists. Like, for instance, Josh, like I said, Josh has his show, and they do a lot of debating with Christians and with believers, right?
Mhm.
So, and I have no problem with what they do. My
Mhm.
best friend is also an atheist.
Mhm.
So I'm not judging anybody for what they did. There are two things, well, three things in this world that's going to make me judge you. That's child molestation, rape, and just being out here just hurting innocent people.
Mhm.
Those three things. Outside of that, I can work through everything else, right?
Right.
But I feel like the things that I went through was so that I could be in the position to be that bridge where I can look at somebody, like I've had the conversation with atheists, where it's for some of them, they need, like, especially the ones that are like extremely intellectual, where they need a tangible explanation for everything, right? And there is no tangible explanation for God as far as they're concerned, right? Now,
Mhm.
for me, it's this is my tangible explanation. I can
Right.
just put my hand on my chest. I woke up. That's enough for me. But for them, it's not enough for them. But I feel like they need somebody like me to look at them and say, I understand why you feel the way you feel. We were just at our family reunion a couple weeks ago, and Josh and another one of our cousins, my cousin Terry, who was also on the Quotes and Mirrors podcast, that also under Relic Media, another plug. Um, and they were going back and forth about the existence of God, and Josh is making his points, and Terry is making his points, and Josh's brother came to me and he said, "Hey, you're gonna come in, you're gonna step in, you're gonna say something." And I said, "No, I'm not, because I probably have a different view than both of you all. Because the thing is this: everything that Josh is saying makes sense.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. For me, I agree with 99% of what Josh says. I agree with everything that Josh said up until He doesn't believe in God
Okay.
up until that point. But everything else, when Josh points out inconsistencies in the Bible, when Josh, like all of the arguments that Josh has, they make sense to me. They
Mhm.
really do. But for me, what it all boils down to is faith. It's
Right.
faith. I understand that I'm not supposed to understand everything.
Hmm.
I'm just not going to understand. I'm not going to understand God. I don't have God's wisdom. I don't have God's knowledge, nor do I want it or need it. Because if I did, then number one, that's going to give me the same responsibilities as God. And number two, it would be too much. It's too much for us in human form to have the wisdom and knowledge that God
Right.
has.
Well, I think so. God makes sense to me. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Second of all, I honor people's position in their place in their walk. It's there. It's my responsibility. Um, it's my responsibility to walk in my walk, and be a light. That's all. That's my only responsibility, to be a light and love, for me. Okay. So I respect everybody else's position, because they're there for a reason. I never forget, I had a vision. I'm laying in a bed and I have a vision, and God said, even the what you consider the bum on the street is me. And it has to be, because without that, you don't know what success looks like. So then that's the law of polarity, right? So it's the opposite. It all has to exist. It has to. That's it balances out. So it all has to exist. So I give honor to it all.
Yeah.
Because one is on the opposite end, and the other can't exist without the other.
Mhm. Sure.
So I give honor to it all. I
Mhm.
give honor to every position, because you don't have one without the other.
Mhm.
So
So,
it's his job to stay in his lane. It's my job to stay in mine.
right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I do. And that's basically what I was telling my cousin. I'm staying in my lane.
Yeah.
You know, I I don't feel it's right in seeing when I watch the conversation, when I see the struggle, the fight between my cousins, which it's not, and it never gets personal. There's still like right after the conversation's over, there's laughing and joking. Even within the conversation, it's just laughing and joking because our family, that's just not what we do. We're not going to come to blows or get upset over, things like that. But um, ah, it's leaving me. It's leaving me. Where was I going with that? Hopefully I'll come back to it.
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
tell
jump
you
to
one of
another
the
point.
powerful things that my mentor, Tyrell, Dr. New,
Mhm.
said to me. Um, she was teaching, and this is biblical. This is word. And a lot of people don't teach it. Is she said in the Bible, Jesus said, "I came back for the lost sheep of Israel." Jesus didn't say he came for everybody.
Mhm.
Jesus didn't say, I came for everybody. I came to save the world. Jesus didn't say that. Jesus said, I came for the lost sheep of Israel,
Mhm.
which will lead you to believe that that meant everybody wasn't going to follow him. Now, there's other people that follow other people, or other teachers, or other saviors, as they call them. So, is everybody going to follow Jesus? No. Jesus came back for the lost sheep of Israel. So,
It went out again. I'm going to.
can you
Can you
hear
hear?
me?
Yep. Okay. Can you hear me?
So Jesus didn't come back for everybody, and that's a misconception. But
Right.
that's word. That's scripture.
And you know what? I'm glad that you said that. That's another conversation that I had with somebody. I said I don't believe that, like for instance, the Buddhists. I don't believe that all Buddhists are going to hell.
Not at all.
You
No.
know, like that's just, I feel that when it comes to spirituality, which is why I say having a relationship with God is far more important than being religious, right? So, and conviction, listening to that conviction is very important as well. If, however, that spirit is presented to you, if the spirit is presented to you as far as Buddhism is concerned, if that's how it's presented to you and that's what you accept, then I believe, yeah, you're going to heaven. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But all of our paths are not the same. They're not all the same.
We're gonna have to discuss on another show because I know it's gonna get too deep if we hit it now. Um, it- we're gonna have to go into the Hebrew meaning of heaven and hell and what that really means, because I think even that is taught in a different way than
Mhm.
what the words really mean. So,
Right.
and like I said, you can be, so I'm gonna drop this and I'm gonna leave that alone. You can choose heaven or hell every day, every minute by your thoughts. You can be on in hell right now because your thoughts and your choices bring you to a hellish state. So people are choosing heaven and hell every single day by their thoughts and by their choices.
Mhm.
So we're gonna leave that there.
That may be next week's
The
topic.
kingdom of heaven is within.
Mhm.
The kingdom of heaven is within. You're choosing it. So is the kingdom of hell.
Right.
So you're choosing it every day,
Mhm.
every minute, every choice, every thought.
And that right there is another connection to metaphysics because that's really what, that, that's what this whole podcast is about. That's how we met in the first place. And um, with you being a doctor of metaphysics and me being a metaphysical practitioner, but also on this journey to become a doctor of metaphysics, there's so many things that I'm learning. So every time that we do this podcast, I want to make sure that we always connect everything to metaphysics, but which you and I know that this whole conversation has been metaphysical.
Mhm.
But maybe other people who don't quite have a complete grasp of metaphysics, they may not understand just how metaphysical this conversation is. I want to um, I want to make another connection to metaphysics here.
Mhm.
One of the things that I absolutely love about metaphysics, especially in my studies, is how inclusive it is.
Absolutely.
And that's really what inspired this. Do you feel welcomed by the church? I felt far more welcomed by metaphysics than I did by the church
Mhm.
because of how inclusive metaphysics is.
Mhm.
Religion was just very, you can't sit at our table.
Right.
You have to look a certain way, you have to be a certain way, you have to act a certain way, and you better not come in here as a sinner. And I'm confused because I thought we all were. But but metaphysics it's just very, very different. Completely different.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get into that word center and again on another day because our time is ticking. Um,
Mhm.
but what I'm gonna say this is I think people diminish God. I think that people diminish because I think people put God in a box and to say that God is only this or God is only that. I think is to not be able to experience the bigness, the love, the joy, the peace that really comes from alignment with God. And that's why it's so important to start asking the questions. When I went on this journey, my mentor said, now you see how many people are really asking for truth. A lot of people go on just what they hear and what they're taught, but they're not asking for truth. They're not asking God for truth, because when you ask for it, you get it if you're open to really receive it. So I think a lot of times people are closed off to only what they think or heard or was taught. When you miss it, you miss the bigness and the love and the joy and the peace that really comes from really experience God in its complete full alignment. And I think when we talk about metaphysics, what it gave me was understanding of what I was reading. So the Bible will give certain what you can do, what you can't do, but a lot of times it doesn't give you the why.
Right.
So it'll give you a principle, but it doesn't give you the why. So now what metaphysics did, which was so beautiful, is it gave me the why. But the first thing first is I think people need to ask for truth within themselves and be open to receive truth, even if it means it's not what you thought it was.
Right.
Because you should know the truth and the truth should set you free.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going based on somebody else's knowledge, if you're going based on somebody else's word, then you miss the God in you.
Mm-hmm.
And what say to you and what it has to give to you and the alignment between you and what is all that is.
Right.
And I think metaphysics, so for me the Bible was the door open. I give homage to it because it was for me the door open, but for me it was the door open. But God never stopped talking. God never stopped um God never stopped being. So God is still talking, God is still teaching, God is still expressing itself through everything. So, and I think metaphysics give you a great understanding of that.
Mm-hmm.
And a
Yeah.
lot of it can be explained now. I love quantum physics. For those people that say, oh, there's no explanation, what they're learning is that quantum physics actually gives a lot of answers because God makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
They taught us God in such a mystical way, but God makes sense. So, but I think number one, for those who really want truth, it's time to start asking for it and being open enough to receive it. And it starts from the inside out, not from the outside in.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I agree. I know we said that we were going to try to keep these podcasts to 30 minutes. I don't know how we're going to do that. I think that's going to be really difficult. Um, but I do think that we're at a point now we could probably start to wrap up. So we right at like right around 48 minutes. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that I just kind of want to recap really quickly, and I want to bring it back to the question: do you feel welcomed by the church? Um, I think that honestly, I don't feel like this is something that we can just unpack in one in one podcast. There's so much to it. I think having a different perspective, several different perspectives, having my perspective with my story, having the perspective of other atheists, having the perspective of somebody who maybe has been that judgmental person,
Hmm.
and wanting to know, that's one thing that I like to just listen. I like to listen to what people are saying. And then I try to listen past the surface. I want to know why you feel the way you feel. I want to know what are your experiences because you're not just who you are for no reason. There is a reason, which is why, like I said, when my cousin Josh is talking, when he's saying certain things, it makes sense. I'm not just listening on the surface. If I only listen on the surface, then maybe I would be one of the ones that engage in the arguments, going back and forth with him about it. But for me, it's like I said, I understand. I understand why you feel the way you feel. I had that conversation with other atheists. This woman told me one time that was she said she was raised in church, but as she got older, there were some things that she went through, some horrible things that happened to her. And then she's talking about, the children, things happening to all of these children. And she said, I just don't understand how a God who was supposed to be so loving and caring could just have all of these bad things happen to these people. So she said, so yeah, I question the existence of God because this isn't what I was taught that he's supposed to be.
Mhm.
And my response to her was, I understand. It makes all the sense in the world to me. Now, I didn't end it there. I told her
Right.
what I told her was, I said, listen, I said, I tell you what, how about this? Just talk to God. Same way you sitting there talking to me. Don't worry about trying to do this fiery prayer that you see these pastors do or anything like that. Just talk to him. Matter of fact, you're telling me that you don't believe that he's real. Tell him that. I know you may feel like you're talking to some invisible person, but it's okay because look, no harm, no foul. Like if nothing happens, then okay, nothing happened, you know. But just tell him, I don't believe that you're real. I don't, and then tell him why you feel like that. The same way you sat here and spoke to me, just talk to him like that. I never judged her. I never tried to force my thoughts, my views, my opinions on her ever because I don't want people to feel the way that I felt when
Right.
I wasn't welcome. And I wasn't even saying I don't believe. I clearly believed I was showing up every Sunday. You know, I wasn't even feeling that way. So if you treat somebody who is a believer that way, what kind of results do you think you're going to get for somebody who's not a believer?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know, so yeah, you can't push and pull at the same time, and you have to give people the space to be who they are. You
Mhm.
know, and understand you're not going to be able to save everybody. You can't force people to live the way that you want them to live. You can't do that. So if it gets too heavy for you, just walk away and pray for
So I must say this. I think if people got about the business of looking within themselves
them.
and doing their work, and
Right.
learning how to heal and
Mm-hmm.
how to align with God, um, and learning how to love themselves, because everybody is just a mirror of who you are. Everybody's just a reflection of you. You know what you sow, you reap. So what energy you put out is the energy you give back. So the reflection that you're seeing, if you don't like it, then you need to go and do your work. So and that's a whole nother conversation. But I think if everybody got about the business of alignment and learning how, first of all, learning who God really is for themselves, not what you somebody gave you, but
Right.
who God is. Um, and then be about the business of aligning with the God within, then you don't have to worry about convincing. You can just let your light shine and people will see it and be drawn to the light. So instead of judging, instead of taking all that energy and talking about somebody else, take that energy and go within and do your work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are truly in alignment with God, you're not looking at anybody in judgment because you're too busy looking at yourself.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of y'all that treat people like that, y'all got a whole bunch of hell inside of you.
That part,
So
that part. When you judge them, you're judging yourself. That-
exactly.
That's what I realized. I never forget when the light bulb clicked on and I said, people are who they believe God is. You want to know who you want to know what people think, who their God is? Look at them. People are who they believe God is. So when people believe that God is judging them and that they're looking at them and that's who they are.
Mm-hmm.
If that
Yeah.
person is full of love and joy and what that's who God is to them.
Mm-hmm.
So people are who they believe God is.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We are going to go ahead and bring this to a close next week. You know what I want to talk about one day? I want to talk about the phrase, and this will I think this would be something that would be good to do on my other podcast, on the Quotes and Mirrors podcast. But um, God, I'm like, because where's that in the Bible? Who came up with that?
Say it again. You went out a little bit.
Oh, I said I want to one day I want to talk about the quote "God don't like ugly," because where did that come from? Who came up with this? How do you know? How do you know that God doesn't like I, I want to know. I want to know all this stuff. You know, um,
Let's
and,
do it. Let's do it.
and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna say something. We're gonna end with this. My cousin Josh just said something that I think is rather powerful, and I don't think everybody is going to like this, but I'm going to say it anyway. He says, I have a life full of joy and love, but I don't believe in God. Because the fact of the matter is, he does have a life full of joy. He does have a life full of love. I know it. I see it firsthand. I am a part of his life. I know it, but he does not believe in God. So,
You know why I love that? I love it because it validates what I said earlier. God is all things. There's nothing that God isn't.
mhm,
So whether you acknowledge it or not, it still is. So so he's a piece of God no matter what, just like I'm a piece of God and you're a piece of God.
mhm,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And we all get to experience the aspects in which we want to live in because it's all energy.
right.
So we all get to choose it. So I love that.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. God needs no validation.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
just is, and we all are it, and it all is us.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm done.
I think that's a good place to end. So, we will be back next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. It's going to be an ongoing thing. We are back to doing this podcast, y'all. We apologize for the 2 year hiatus, but the timing thing, like you said, Nicole, it's a timing thing.
Yeah.
It's a timing thing. So we had to. Well, there were certain journeys that needed to occur so that we could get back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're back now. So,
Yes. I don't remember how we used to end the show before, but bye, y'all.
right.
We'll figure that out later. All right. Y'all take care.